I hope everybody is collectively doing introspection in their lives. Today is a day that I think we all need to look at ourselves, who we want to be as human beings. But I want to talk about something that I think is super important, because a point was brought up in the comments on one of the posts that I made. Where was your post for the Democratic representatives in Minnesota that were killed? Where are your posts about black men that have been brutalized by horrific police officers and unfair policing? Where are those posts? And I want to say that I understand that people have those questions, and I respect that. And I think it's an important perspective. But here's the reality. Every day that I wake up, I'm black and I'm a man and I'm large, and I have to apologize in every public space for being large and black. And I'm always hyper aware of how I would be seen by cops and by law enforcement and by people. And it is a horrific reality that I have to be aware of how, as a black man, I'm viewed in this country. They don't know nothing about what I believe or my love for my family, my commitment to, fighting for certain causes on a consistent basis, bridge building. They see a black man, and this country still sees everything through the lens of race and through the lens of a broken and divisive culture. So I want to say this. As I said in a previous video, and I would really invite you to take a listen to what I said. I don't know all of this man's platform who was killed. There are some things that he said that were horrific, that I do not agree with, deeply disturbing. And I think just plain wrong. And it doesn't change that he should not have been killed. But the idea that there are people saying, what about the post for the kids who were killed at the Catholic school? Or every other shooting from Sandy Hook all the way to Parkland, all the way to today in Colorado. You don't understand the stress and the strain of trauma posts, knowing that at any moment it could be me. I could walk out this door and get shot, and somebody say, I felt threatened. I was afraid. And so therefore, I shot him. And a lot of people would justify that. Being black in this country, being a black man living in the South, is not an easy thing. And race still matters. And if you don't think it does, you are crazy. As a black man who watched a black man in his car get his window punched out and then punched in the face and lose a tooth and get a concussion, the outrage was so visceral. To see the consistent over-policing and brutality of black men, I've made so many lives about it. But to post about every single thing would almost be a full-time job. And I'm not on social media like that. For me, what shook me today is what I know is coming next. Because all this did is embolden people to go kill people they don't agree with. And it's going to happen on the other side. And then we're going to be a civil war. But I wanted to be very clear that I understand how people could say, why are you so grieved by this? Weren't you grieved by the Democratic senators? Weren't you grieved by the kids who were shot? I live in that constant state of grief. I cry tears. But as someone who has been gifted some measure of influence and a platform, I think it is important for me to understand how people are looking for a voice that is just as loud for the causes that are directly connected to this skin. And that's something that I have to respect. But I will not be, nor will I ever be, for sale or bought by the idea that I am exclusively black. My blackness is secondary to my worldview, which is Christ-focused. And for people who say it's a white man's religion, please study. There were no Europeans writing scripture. They're Middle Eastern Jews, Middle Eastern prophets. But there were selective biblical interpretations used by white people in this country to perpetuate slavery, atrocities towards black people. I understand it. My grief was not agreement. My grief is someone who knows what's coming next. The humanity of every human being, including the ones you disagree with, matters. What happened to the Democratic senators is atrocious and unconscionable. What happened to Philando Castile, which I was extremely loud about, was unconscionable. Listening to the police officer talk about how wide his nose was and he looked like a criminal. It's horrific. When Michael Brown was shot, we can keep going. Tamir Rice, we can keep going. When a brother was killed by the officers in Memphis, I went to the funeral. I was deeply grieved because I lived this. I lived in Texas. My wife was inside the house. I was on the phone with my wife and someone else on three-way, and she was in the house. I'm in my driveway, and the police pull up in my driveway, get out, hands on gun, walking towards me. And I told my wife, come outside right now, right now. She thought I was playing. I said, come outside right now. My wife walks out. The cops are pulling up, walking up to the car that I'm in, hands on the gun. And they said, ma'am, are you all right? She said, of course I'm all right. Why? She said, well, we saw this car in the driveway and this man in the car. She said, this is his house and that's my husband. But they were going to approach me. And if I had done anything wrong, they would have shot me and been justified because they don't see a father first. They don't see a husband first. They see black first. That's the reality. And so I've seen a lot of things today, and it is not a zero-sum game. It's not either or. It's a both and. But I live my grief knowing that at any moment I could be in a frosty picture with a dash between 1973 and 2025 because I live this reality. I live where race still is a construct utilized for hatred and demoralization. And the horrific treating of black bodies in institutional spaces where we are not represented in the leadership or in authority positions is as consistent as every other horrific aspect of this culture. This nation is coming to a reckoning point. That's why I posted today. Because of every horrible thing that's gone on, I absolutely am persuaded to know that this will be truly an inflection point, and it's going to get worse. and you're going to see more violence, and you're going to see more viciousness, and it's going to be more death, and people are going to feel more justified in their violence. And I am heartbroken. Jimmy, you don't know me, and I don't have $3,000 shoes on, and I don't live in a mansion. You don't know me. You don't know what me and my wife have given up. You don't know me. You don't know anything about me. And I'm not going to go back and forth with people who assume anything. You are like most people. You think that your opinion is gospel, and it's not any more than my opinion is gospel. It's my opinion. These are my thoughts. It's my reality. But when you say things that aren't true, I'm going to say something. I'm a husband and a father. I willingly have given up probably more than... Anyway, it doesn't matter. I'm not here to prove anything to you. This nation is in trouble. And nobody wants to talk about how we got here, but we got here because at the founding of this country, there was a spirit. And the spirit over this nation is not one of freedom. The spirit over this nation is one of oppression. And black bodies helped to build it free of charge that were traumatically, horrifically, consistently brutalized. And people say, well, why are you talking about it? I wasn't there. It wasn't my fault. No, it wasn't your fault. But this nation, as an institution, has a reckoning. Nobody alive now owned slaves in this country. But it doesn't change the history of slavery, the horrific tragedies of countless rapes, murders, lynchings. Think about the O.J. Simpson trial and how people were angry. I personally believe that he committed those crimes and he should have gone to jail. The jury felt otherwise. But the outrage from a lot of white people that he got away with it. And I remember thinking all white juries acquitted people that they knew murdered black bodies, but no one's talking about that. We have selective outrage. And too many people are afraid to stand on what they believe because they want to be popular. They want to be liked. I've lost a lot of people who followed my page today, and that's just what it is. People have a right to follow who they want. But right is right and wrong is wrong. And right is right if nobody's for it, and wrong is wrong if everybody's for it. This country is in trouble. And we are on the verge of a point where we're not going to get it back. I'm telling you what I know. School shootings, political murders, political violence. God showed me that. I prophesied that. Now it's going to go up a whole nother level. And nobody's going to be safe going out anywhere. It's awful. But I want to make it clear that I understand and respect people who say, well, why weren't you as loud about these other people? I may not be loud on social media, but I'm loud about it in places where it counts. I'm loud about it. But I don't look for applause on this platform. You got too many thirsty people posting. I want truth and I want healing and I want dialogue that's going to lead towards real solutions. Social media is not the place to do that. It's the place to start it, but it certainly is not going to end it. Those poor kids who were worshiping God in a morning devotion got shot by a former student. It's wicked and godless. Uvalde, wicked and godless. The 28 people that got killed at the church in Texas, wicked and godless. Every black body that's been killed by cops and those cops get immunity, wicked and godless. For people who would use this as a reason to create more violence, that's where my grief comes in. Because people saying, oh, you gonna do this? We're gonna pick out one of y'all stars and we're gonna kill them too. We're gonna pick out a Democrat. We're gonna pick out a liberal voice. That's what's going to happen. And if you don't know that, then you don't understand. And I've seen people say, well, he spoke a lot of these things and his words created his reality. I'll say this, everybody better be careful. Because when people scream, you reap what you sow, if we all look at our lives, there's some things you did not reap for what you sowed. And many of us are grateful that we haven't reaped some of the things that we sowed. And that's still standing in a judgmental seat. Because wrong is wrong, but every human has been wrong and everybody's imperfect. I'm not here to agree with anyone's political stance, but every human being deserves the dignity and respect of speaking whatever it is they believe without fear of getting shot. As I said earlier, Dr. King was shot because of what he spoke, what he stood for. Him marching was not a physical threat to anyone, but him living nonviolent principles certainly was. And he didn't call that to himself any more than Malcolm X called the bullets of his assassins to himself in the Audubon ballroom. That was pure hatred and jealousy and so many other things. But there's a reckoning coming. The soul of this particular nation that we live in is at stake. Somebody better do something. So I find it very counterproductive to go back and forth with individuals in social media spaces because it doesn't really lend itself towards truth and towards reconciliation. But as a black man living in a country and growing up in a city that I knew that if you cross over these train tracks after a certain time, you could get beat or lose your life. Being called nigger while I'm walking in Cincinnati, in certain neighborhoods, knowing what it's like to be profiled, knowing what it's like to be pulled over in one car and my wife was behind me in another car. And when the cops got out, went to her car like, why are you pulling up? And she was like, because that's my husband. And we're going to make sure that whatever you do, you know you're being watched. The realities of being black in this country for many of us is unconscionable, and most people won't understand it unless you've lived it. But I want to say to those who have said with genuine concern, why are you not more vocal? I hear you. And for a good while, I've been quiet. And I've been grieving a lot of things and processing a lot of things. And I'll speak it from the platform at church, but a lot of y'all don't go to my church and you probably don't hear what I'm saying. But what I'm saying right now is not new. I've said it before. I'll say it again. But my heart is grieved. And I will be very clear to understand that in these easily offendable spaces that people are looking for clickbait and headlines, And I don't want the headline to be that somehow I'm only grieved because of this particular death. It is not true. I'm grieved for every single horrific thing that's happened to men who look like me unjustly, who fully complied and still got killed. And even if you don't comply, get arrested and go to trial, you still shouldn't get killed for resisting arrest. You still shouldn't get killed for fleeing. Walter Scott shot in the back in South Carolina, running away. False report filed, but the officer didn't know somebody videotaped it. Those are the realities. But now we're in a different, darker territory. And the truth is, the reason why I was grieved today is because I know what's coming. Because folk on the other side who have the opposite beliefs, they're now going to be targeted. And that is my deepest sadness. So I want this to be clear. I personally give every month to the Sandy Hook Promise because I have kids. And the thought of dropping them off at school and then getting a phone call that they're not coming home is just unconscionable to me. But the conversation is not about conservative and liberal. It's not about black and white. It's about the spirit over this nation. A spirit that still sees people based on color and class and culture and demographics and neighborhoods. Because I assure you, the level of crime in Beverly Hills was the same as it is in certain neighborhoods in Chicago, there would be an absolute outrage. If the level of murder of black men perpetuated by other black men was as important as a murder in Encino, California, you would see an immediate drop in crime. But the reality is, black neighborhoods and black bodies dropping is something that certain people actually want to see happen. So now we don't have fathers raising children, and women who are searching and desiring to be married and to perpetuate a legacy don't even have a pool to be chosen from or to be chosen by. So my soul is grieved. But I think it was important for me to hear, respect, and understand that there are people who say, hey, John, you got a platform. It looks like you over here talking about this, but you didn't talk about that. Thank you. I appreciate my wife as well, who is very much committed to the causes of displaced, dispossessed, dishonored black individuals in these spaces. We both marched in Houston for George Floyd. I was on a lot of these platforms when that happened at white churches. It's called borrowed credibility. But the conversation needed to happen. But I'm grateful for being man enough to hear, change, to understand that my voice can't just be heard in moments like this. It must be consistent across every area of atrocity, particularly and most specifically when it involves black men, black people. Sandra Bland, I was loud about it. My wife was marching in Louisville next to her sister from New York, right? And the rest fighting for justice for our sister who was shot in her house. And nobody went to jail for that. And so I respect the activism and I respect the pain. Our nation is in trouble. You can accept what I'm saying prophetically or not. War is coming. In fact, war is here. Over the next 4 weeks, we're going to see an uptick in this foolishness. And I'm already sad about it. I'm already sad about it. There's more coming. So I want to say that I appreciate those who help me to understand the importance of speaking up on the platform I've been given in measurable ways and meaningful ways, particularly to the community that I come from. Me talking about it from a pulpit is not the same as a post, and one disembodied post without context can lead one to believe that somehow today's horrific tragedy is somehow more important than all of the other horrific tragedies, and it's not the case. I don't use or utilize this platform for all of the things that grieve me. I'd be posting every day. But I am man enough to hear and to respect the pain of the people who have been consistently aggrieved by the systems and institutions in this country that do not, nor have they ever been, moved in the favor of Black people, and particularly Black men. So I leave this moment saying that every act of violence towards those who disagree, liberal or conservative, is wrong. I don't agree with this current president. I don't agree with the policies. I've made posts about this immigration thing and what the Bible says about it. I was the person that spoke about how Jesus was fleeing political persecution when he went to Egypt because Herod thought he was a threat to his king throne, not realizing that Jesus is king of the universe, not the king of Israel. He wasn't looking for that. Leaving and fleeing political persecution doesn't give you the right to treat people like trash. And this current administration has a reckoning. And the white evangelical pastors who lifted up this president as a Messiah figure have a reckoning. And the way you treat the poor and the widow and the stranger and the alien, if you don't read Leviticus, then you don't know that God's heart is you treat them like you treat yourself because you were strangers and aliens and slaves in Egypt. That's what God said. And so people who say that somehow this administration is some type of messianic sign, no, it's just a bigger sign that the end is coming. But you're going to have a reckoning. And so there's a lot that's getting ready to happen. I've already lost relationships and friendships because of these things. I just don't talk about it. I am hoping that you all will join me in prayer that the violence that's coming doesn't tear us completely apart. Every nation since the Roman Empire has fallen at about the 250 to 260 year mark. You should go and see how old America is. I'll wait. 1776. 2025 might have 1776, 259 years. I'll give it to you. Every nation, fiat currency has fallen at this exact moment. And all of them thought they were invincible. And no one is. But to the people who say, John Gray, if you're going to use your platform then you highlight the injustices on every side. I heard you. But don't lose sight of this fact. Today was not an admonition or some type of stamp towards an ideological affiliation. It was the horrific reality of watching someone get killed in real time, the same way Kennedy was killed and you saw it. The way you see the picture of Dr. King on the second level of that Lorraine Motel. Knowing that 9/11 is, the anniversary is tomorrow. It is just so much. And I am grieved. And I wish to God that color didn't matter. I wish to God that my blackness was not offensive to white people or to people in positions of power. I wish that the promise of America was the same for every human being who was born here. That is not the reality. Yeah. So I hope that we can have further discussion, and I hope we can somehow come together. But I am grateful because as a human being that's trying to grow and evolve and change and to humble myself to hear from people who have allowed me space in their world, it's important for me to acknowledge the pain of Black people in this country and the police brutality and the horrific murder of Democratic senators in Minnesota and the killing of children in schools. And no one's saying anything about it. Well, not no one. Me not understanding the necessity of my voice in these spaces. So I'm grateful for correction and adjustment. And my words will never be used to further create division, because everything that I've said tonight is factual as far as the things that have happened to men that look like me and women that look like my wife and to young boys that look like my son. And I'll share this as I go. When Trayvon Martin was murdered by a racist who sold the gun for profit, I remember us waiting for the verdict in the case, and when we heard not guilty, I was driving. My wife cried and cried and cried and cried. And when Trayvon was killed, my wife cried and cried and cried. And I said, "You didn't know him. Why are you crying like this?" And what she said will stay with me forever. She said, "Because I'm raising a Black son. And he could be walking down the street with some candy and get killed by somebody who thinks he's a threat in his own neighborhood." My wife helped me to see in a way that I hadn't. Sometimes when you are invited to white spaces, you assume that it's all good, and it's not. It's not. It's not all good. It ain't never been good. We just lie about it. We need to go on and tell the truth about what's going on. If the truth gonna make you free, then let's get to the truth. So. Was strange, the same guy, and I'm not blocking you on purpose. The jacket wasn't 10K, and it's irrespective of what we're talking about tonight. But you're the type of person that needs attention, and I'm going to say this to you. Whatever it is you decide to think about me is your opinion. But you sure are giving me a lot of your attention when you could just log off. So we done with that. You have a lot to say. And here's the thing, to the people that are responding to him, this is what he wants. Don't know who he is, and he won't get this level of attention again. So this is the place that we find ourselves in. Insecure individuals who need to highlight whatever they highlight to form a narrative and to declare this, that, and the third. I see my wife on here. It's funny because I'm more diplomatic. My wife is about it. She is that woman. And yeah, the reality is, whatever God has blessed me and my family with has zero to do with you. I didn't ask you for anything. Never have, never will. I'll do whatever it takes to provide for my family. As long as we have a roof over our head, I thank God. But make sure you keep that same energy for all your people. Not just me. But Av, I want to thank you on this public place for giving me a perspective about today that I had not had. I want to publicly thank you for the woman that you are, the muse and the sounding board and the wise counsel that you provide. I want to thank you. I want to thank you. Thank you for helping me to understand that the Black experience from your generation is very different from the Black experience of my generation. We were taught to comply and acquiesce and to do whatever it took to fit in. And you are not from that school. And I'm grateful for that. Thank you, Aventer, for being a mother that is deeply committed to the safety of your children and for not being naive enough to think that somehow because I've been invited into white spaces, that somehow that changes the narrative of raising Black children in a society that still hates Black bodies but needs them. So we're invited to the culture. We're invited to dance for you and sing for you and play sports for you, but we are not invited to the bank. We're not invited to the business loans. We're not invited to the gentrification. We're not invited to that. We're invited to eminent domain. We're invited to redlining. We're invited to redistricting. And so there is a concerted effort to silence Black and brown voices and poor and dispossessed people. And if you haven't read, God is a God of justice. And it wouldn't matter what color the majority is. If it was the other way around, God would still be ready to deal with it. But I can assure you, God is not mocked. God is not mocked. So I'm going to go ahead and finish up here. Y'all have a great evening. God bless.